Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters, and it is
Yeah,
still February
yeah,
2nd,
yep.
just like in Groundhog Day.
All right, that's right. We should do that all again.
We should like strike up Sonny and Cher
Yeah.
right now.
Sunny's gone. Cher's still around. Yeah,
That's true. And Moonlight is
not
not,
Moonlight.
uh,
What are you thinking of?
Moonstruck. Moonstruck is still a great
Moonstruck.
movie.
Yes,
I've
that's
actually
that's
seen it
that's
a
on the
couple of times.
list. That's on the list.
That
Yeah,
is like good quarantine movie.
that's a good movie.
So
Yeah.
So in the last half hour, we're just ending with a few sort of farewells to some people who have been
Yeah.
working for the city, in and around the city for, or not necessarily for the city, but for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I just mentioned Lisa Peterson, who
Right.
I think I mentioned. I first knew her when she took over for her predecessor, who we were probably around 1990 or even 89,
Hmm.
when we were getting the volunteer run recycling
Right.
program.
Just starting. Yeah.
And even though it was volunteer run, we were working in conjunction with uh, Department of Public Works and using some city resources and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So we really worked with the manager's office. We didn't work with city councilors. Rest assured, it was all with the manager's office, which is,
Yeah.
and I don't shy from the fact that part of my loyalty to people like Bob Healy and Rich Rossi is rooted in that, is that
Sure.
they treated us right, and I tried to
And
treat
is
them
that
right.
when they started a recycling department? I mean, was it like
The
90,
recycling.
91?
What happened is in 89, I think at some point, just the logistical details of setting up these sites was such that
Division, not a department. Yeah.
they did let out a bit of a contract to Vicky Casana, who was one of our
Oh,
the
yeah.
coordinators, just to coordinate the logistics, so that was sort of the first location within the public works establishment. And then later on, when we were moving toward a curbside recycling program, and it became, then
Hmm.
it was a whole big job description went out, and then the rest is history.
Right.
That's when the mandatory recycling ordinance was written. I mean, we originally started out, we were lobbying for curbside recycling, but it
Hmm.
was not a reality.
Right.
But when it became a
Yeah.
curbside recycling program, then it was really a city function. So
And the fact that,
that was,
that they started a division, and we even had, people don't remember this, we even had a commercial recycling person at least half time, but that went away. But, a lot of cities don't even have it. It's all volunteer.
yeah. When
So
we
that's
started, actually, we had a person on
right.
staff
Yeah.
working on getting apartment building recycling going. We had a person together just doing the
So,
general curbside program,
so who was the first
and the
hire? Was it
commercial.
Jan Assetti? Was she the first?
Janicetti was the first full-time hire, yeah.
Okay.
And but we also had, oh gosh, I'm forgetting some of the names, but they're there in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The woman who had the cat purse all the time. What's her name? I forget. I should write them all down so I don't forget them all
Well,
the
there was
time.
Over the year, Dawn Quirk, and she went on to Tufts, and now she works on at the state. And then there was Courtney Forrester, who went on to run Newton, and forget what she's doing now. Oh, she's in
Yeah,
the private sector doing waste stuff. Yeah. So we
yeah.
spawned a lot of good people.
Yes, it's really true. Actually, when I was actually invited to be part of the interview team when we were replacing after when Janicetti was leaving,
Right.
and some of the people who interviewed, who were seeking to become the new recycling director for Cambridge, their names, like most of them, I think, sort of showed up as recycling directors for other cities and towns.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people wanted the Cambridge job, but they were really, really well
Right.
qualified for the other jobs as well.
Yeah.
So
No.
anyway, so Lisa is now retired, and good luck to her.
Hmm.
And but the two other really one we knew about for a while ago was Susan Fleischman, who didn't work for the city,
Right.
executive director of CCTV, and so she's now officially left the position.
Yeah.
So there was a city council resolution congratulating her for all the time she's put in
Yes.
with CCTV. And again, I'm mentioning a lot of these names here because these are people who I viewed as personal friends now for
Oh,
decades.
I knew Susan when the city wanted to take over, bid for a cable to run their own cable system.
Right, that's
And
right.
that was back in the 80s.
Yes. And then the third in this rather nice trifecta was Liza Paden.
Yeah, I
And
don't know her. I know the name. Yeah, but
Liza, I know because I knew her when she was Liza Malenfant. She was Geneva's
oh, okay.
Liza,
Oh, right. I did read your okay.
But my first contact with Liza, and Liza has been the go-to person within the community development department in all matters relating to the process with the planning board.
Okay.
Basically when you were filing applications, whatever, you had to
Yeah.
send everything to Liza. Liza was always
Wow.
there, sort of the
Okay.
staff person advising everybody on everything.
Mm.
And so she's been solid for a long, long time. Her mom, Geneva, had been on the planning
Right.
board for a time.
Right.
I think actually maybe simultaneously, which must have been interesting. I'm not 100% sure of that. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I've known her family for
Sure.
forever,
They
so
live in that, Geneva lived in that big yellow house in
there with
Cambridge.
that at the
In
foot of
the
Henry
corner
and
there.
Brookline
Yeah.
Street. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, and
Yeah.
to connect it to the recycling, when we were first getting apartment building recycling, we were trying to identify recycling captains and things in various
Oh,
buildings.
right. Yeah.
And
We had
then
neighborhood, right.
and
Designate.
Eliza was living on Dana at the time, Dana. And that's my first contact. I think might have been her because of her role basically as the recycling
Yeah.
contact person for her
Yeah.
building.
That's
you know
interesting. Yeah.
so small world. But I was joking
Wow.
about it to say that if you were to total the total amount of time Liza and I were chatting on Inman Street, because we live in, she works
Right.
very close to where I live, it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and
Too
hours.
bad you didn't record that. That would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so it's life, politics, and city government and
Those
everything.
those are those are biggies. Those are real biggies. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was sort of big. Now, one other item, just to sort of speaking of planning boards and whatever, because
Mm.
inevitably it'll go before them. There
Yeah.
was yet another zoning petition that was
Yes.
filed. That many of us had heard about for a while, but it was officially filed. Would have been yesterday, but now it officially goes in as filed tomorrow.
Hmm.
That is referred to as what is it called? The
The
middle
missing middle
housing
housing petition. Yeah.
petition,
Missing
right?
middle housing petition.
Right. And I guess it's not surprising to see some petitions of this nature coming in now, because I know that there's what is it, a neighborhood and long-term planning,
Oh,
language
on the
planning
single
committee.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
about
Right.
possible changes
Yes.
to what's whether there are some zones in the city, relatively
Yeah.
few, but that are single family
I mean, they relate
housing.
in a way if you read through this, which I try to. I mean, they want to change everything to like an N or something, but you can talk about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, talk a
So,
bit about that. But the thing is that so there are some people, including me, when I was on the Envision Cambridge
yeah.
Advisory Committee and the Housing Committee, suggested that we ought to be relaxing some of the zoning restrictions,
Right.
so that, and I mean, the way I looked at it is that if you happen to be a person, especially an older person who is overhoused, you had a big building basically, and you were in one of these zones, and you said, well, I think I'd like to operate this like as a rooming house or as a
Right.
take in borders or even maybe subdivide it, you'd need you'd go through a very difficult variance process to be able to do that. And maybe you wouldn't be able to do it. Of course, a lot of people are actually just doing it. You take in borders, you don't necessarily contact anybody.
Right.
But I thought, maybe there was a place to relax some of those restrictions. What's the problem of having a two-family in the middle of a single-family zone? I
Yeah.
don't see it as a problem.
Yeah.
And so, and now then there are other proposals that came in from city council, pushing toward obliterating all single-family zoning, which I personally, again, I'm not going to say this is absolutely definitive truth, but I personally think this is just sort of mimicry of things that are happening elsewhere in the country right now.
Which
You
are
know,
different places in the sense of what
thoroughly
they
different
had before.
places.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, if
Minneapolis.
you have a city or town elsewhere, that simply forbids you to have anything other than single family homes,
Right. No
and
apartment houses and stuff.
right,
Right.
and they just basically have banned multifamily
Right.
homes from the city.
Right.
And certainly apartment buildings are banned from the city entirely. That's a very different context than
Mhm.
Cambridge, which is predominantly multifamily already,
Right.
where there are some areas which are primarily two families, and then some relatively small amount of single family left, and that's it.
Mhm.
So my personal feeling is the mix in Cambridge is not a bad mix.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of something for everybody, except for the fact that it's all overpriced. right?
And the
Uh,
fact is, if you eliminated that rule, it wouldn't create necessarily the housing that you want for the people that you want. So
well,
that's
the thing
part
is,
of it.
so this petition comes in that's on the agenda for tomorrow that'll get referred to the planning board and the ordinance
Okay,
committee for hearing and report.
right,
Is billed as a missing middle housing
right.
petition. But when you read it, there is not a single thing in this petition
Yeah,
that in any way gives any assurance that this will in any way benefit middle income people whatsoever.
right. It just, right. It
It's,
basically just wants to change the A1, A2, whatever. I don't know. They just want to change to a residence N neighborhood
right. So what it would do is it would
with
take,
no parking requirements.
I mean, I know this is, it gets kind of esoterica here, but there right now in the residential zones, there are bunches of them, but there's like residence A1, A2,
A1, A2, B
which
zone.
are kind of
Yeah.
the most
It
low
said it
density.
covers a third of the residences in Cambridge.
Right. So the allowable floor area ratio in those zones is
Yeah.
0.5, which is pretty low. That basically means you could put a one-story building on half the lot, or you could put a two-story building on a quarter of the lot. So it requires a lot of open space. So those tend to be the leafy pseudo suburbs of Cambridge,
Right.
right? Now you can argue, is 0.5 too low? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There's also then residence C, uh, which is, you know, other parts of the city, which is I think 0.6 floor area ratio, so a little bit more density. And then residence C1 is the other major zone. Um, where I live is actually a mixed residential
Uh-huh.
commercial, but any residential buildings have to conform to the resident C1 standard,
Which
which
is what?
allows 0.75 floor area ratio. Okay. Now, it is absolutely true that there are many properties throughout the city that were built before the zoning code was
Yeah, they're
established
non-conforming.
in
Isn't
the
yours
1920s.
non-conforming?
Mine is
Yeah.
non-conforming, and, there are plenty of them,
Hmm.
which would mean that if I want to do any alterations, I'd have to get a variance to do it. So it
Right.
is kind of restrictive.
Right.
The zoning that came afterwards is somewhat restrictive in this regard.
Hmm.
Um, so mine works out to be about a 1.27 FAR
Wow.
because it's a small lot and a three-family house,
Right.
and with no essentially very little in the
You
way
have
of
very
setbacks
little.
on the
You have
side.
nothing. You
Small,
have
yeah, I
nothing.
got nothing, right? So I would, from my standard, I would call my building a little on the overdeveloped side in terms of,
Yeah.
this style of residential housing. This petition that's to be filed tomorrow would take resident A1, 0.5,
Hmm.
and A2, 0.5,
Hmm.
Res B, which is
7,
0.6, I think,
0.6.
and then C1, which is 0.75. Merge them all together across the city into a single residential
In.
zoning category
Mhm.
called resident N, as in neighborhood zoning.
Yeah.
And
And
the
what's the FAR for that?
allowable FAR would become 1.25.
Oh, come on. That's crazy.
I think it's, well, unless what you really want to do is just jam pack densify the city
That's what it would look
for
like.
other reasons, which
Yeah.
I think is what this is really about then. And I'll just say, all right, so I'm in a non-conforming building. I would not impose the standard of my building as
Right.
somehow appropriate in anywhere
Well, it
really.
seems to me this is not going to get the support of people like Quentin or, that wants open space. They want, right? Don't they want
What-
setbacks and things like that?
I would be shocked if it got the support of a
Yeah.
person like either Dennis Carlone or Quentin
Yeah.
Zonder. Um, but the thing is that it is proposed by the ABC group.
Well, but
The
I was looking at some of the names. I don't know if they're all strictly ABC
they're
people.
not strictly, because it's a petition, so anybody could sign it, and in
True.
fact they invited people to sign it
I
online.
see. Yeah, David
So
Sullivan is a signature on that.
David Sullivan is solid ABC.
Oh, is he? Okay.
He
He's
was
a
probably the
signature
single biggest
on your.
contributor to their
Oh,
campaigns
that's. Well, I knew
last
he was
year.
AHO, but okay,
Yes,
didn't
no,
know
he
that. All right.
gung ho for it. So
Okay.
so the thing is that, if you choose to view city councilors based on who endorsed them in the previous municipal election, you might think, well, So there's 6 counselors who are just going to say yay to this or that, and I doubt that, but
I don't think so.
we'll sort of see whether they're their own person or not, or whether they're basically beholden to an organization. I hate to put it in such stark terms, but that's the way I look at it.
Hmm.
And so, are these counselors or counselors like Malin able to actually, or do they actually believe that Cambridge needs to be a lot more like,
Malin endorsed by ABC?
yes,
She was.
yes, so is this really what they're looking for? I
Mhm.
don't know. I mean, the way I kind of look at where I live in mid Cambridge,
Yeah.
I see sort of a mix of, some non-conforming, some conforming. And we also do have some apartment buildings,
Oh, yeah.
on some of the corridors. And I
Yeah.
can see, if you wanted to kind of create more density generally around the city, how you could strategically permit some apartment buildings in places where it's appropriate, as opposed to just a blanket a granting of additional density all
Mhm.
across the board. I talked to some people who know a lot about zoning, and they
Yeah.
basically said, well, this will be a boon to the single family homeowner who wants to have even more of a single family home, because if they were only allowed to build to zero point 0.5 FAR, and well, boy, they can put the inside gym inside their building now, and
So
they
it
can build it
wouldn't,
all out.
so they wouldn't be required to do
No,
multiple units. They could just expand on what
they
they
could
have.
just expand,
Yeah.
And if people
Beats the purpose.
naively think
Yeah.
that somebody's that are going to come in here and just sort of start building moderate income housing, well, they might, but the thing is that it's whatever the market's going to want to do.
Right.
So right now, I think there's still some unmet demand for the kind of the McMansion and type, sort of a townhouse version of a suburban McMansion, where you got everything you could ever possibly want, and in
I don't
this
know.
leafy suburbs.
I don't
Well,
see that
but,
happening right here, but
well,
the point is the
actually,
potential could be there.
but
Yeah.
right now, there's actually a market for people buying houses like mine, triple deckers or two families, and turning them into single families, because there are people
Yeah.
who want that. They want that space. And they're basically taking multis and turning them into
Yeah.
singles in order to make it
But
so.
on the other end of it, they're taking a single family or a two-decker that maybe have a large lot and they're making 4 units out of it
That's
that
right.
go for a millions plus. So,
Millions plus.
you know,
So
it's
what would
not still
happen?
not going to create the housing you want to need, but
Well, I think you'll
or
get
maybe it is. Maybe they don't care who lives there as long
you'll,
as
you'll
it's
get
part of it.
you'll get McMansions. I think you may get some of what you want, but you'll also get a lot of kind of more densely built townhouses in the leafy pseudo suburbs, investment properties, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that calling it the missing middle zoning petition
I know it's a little
is the
misleading.
worst version of
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
false advertising I've seen
Yeah.
in ages.
Yeah.
But that's what they're going to do, and I think there are a lot of naive people who are going to just totally buy into it. But we'll see. So
Okay.
anyway, it's just being
That's
introduced. Hearings to come, people
right.
hash it out, people lining up politically, and as we've been seeing over the last few years, threatened politically. You either support this or we don't endorse you, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's going to make for an interesting year. One
So what
other,
else? Yeah, let's talk about what
well, oh, we did that's two things I would think. One is
yeah,
hostile architecture, and the other one
yeah,
is let's just call it the magic mushroom order. the
magic mushroom. Oh my God, I
Yeah,
didn't get that at all. The ethno something plants or
yes,
something I didn't
basically.
even know about. I
Yeah,
don't know.
but just on the hostile
Yeah.
architecture
Oh yeah.
item. So this was something that when there was on the city council meeting, there were a lot of people who were phoning in,
A few
sort of,
weeks ago. Yeah.
yeah, and they were arguing about the installation of
Black
rails or
cars
something
on in the subway.
in
Yeah.
the subway, right? Which would prevent,
People
or
lying down.
yeah, though actually maybe it wouldn't. It would depend on whether you can fit your legs under it or not. I don't know. But the thing is that it was viewed as, quote, hostile architecture.
Which is a term which has been around, I guess, because
It's
I
been
read
around.
it
Yeah,
was
yeah. No, I read an Globe article about this like
right.
several months ago.
Yeah, I that's
Um,
the one I sent to you. Yeah,
yeah. And
recently.
by the way, this is yet another example of something where strangely I'm seeing similar campaigns happening in other cities across the country. So
Yeah.
there seems to be sort of an orchestration of these issues as
Yeah.
part of the national movement.
Okay.
That's my perception. Um, but anyway, so now, with this week comes a city council order,
Uh-huh.
raising issues on hostile architecture.
Yep.
There where there's a I think actually I can do a little quick screen share here
All
and
right.
illustrate this. Here we go. One see those. Here we go. Right there. Here we go. So these are just three examples, which I'm not personally convinced I would call this hostile architecture, but at the corner of Bishop Allen in Maine, there are some
Uh-huh.
sort of steel, kind of heavy steel benches and things. I think this was, I believe, has the mark of Adam Simha. I'm pretty sure that's who put those in there. You'll look, by the way, if you look around, you'll also see there's a lot of just pure granite that is unobstructed. So I don't know why this was included here with this council order as examples of hostile architecture.
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't like steel. Anyway,
Yeah.
Zondervan, Sabrina, Wheelo, McGovern, and Siddiqui are the ones who are sponsoring this one.
How long have these existed? Like the
That
one in the
the
middle.
the,
How
the
long has
one
that been there?
the one on the left has been there for ages.
Okay.
Um,
The
the
middle?
one in the middle is when they built Green Rose Heritage Park over, that's off of Broadway.
Okay.
And that's been in there for a while. I don't personally see why, other than the fact it has handles, which if you're older are pretty helpful to getting up, why
Yeah.
that would necessarily be called hostile.
And also, like the bench on the right, I mean, I think it's also to show, okay, this is your space, this is my space. Maybe
Yeah.
people,
I mean,
otherwise you
will,
take over, you put your bags there. And I don't know,
yeah.
I don't see it as terribly as some people
Some
do.
of the reasons for putting it on, for example, the benches in Green Rose Heritage Park may also be to prevent skateboarders from and other
Oh
people
my
from
God,
sort of
that's true.
using the
Jumping up
space
on those.
to sort of,
Oh,
doing
that's a
things which.
good point.
And then
Yeah.
and actually, I know that in some of the granite structures in Central Square, that was part of the reason for putting in obstructive
Uh-huh.
apparatus there, was they didn't want skateboarders to basically be
Right.
ruining the granite surface.
Right.
So there are reasons why some of these things are put in, and it's not all because they're trying to be hostile.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I have to say, just looking at some of the designs here, like the ones in Center Park, I'm thinking that's hostile. you
I
know,
know. I know.
um,
I know.
so, but if that's what the sponsors of the resolution are calling hostile, then I think they have some anger issues or something
Yeah.
they got to work out otherwise.
Yeah. Because I mean, yeah. I mean, if you walk around, you'll see a lot of, small silver, like I said, at the Manning Apartments, in front of the Central Square Library. I don't see that
Yeah,
as hostile.
I think it's a valid topic of discussion. In fact,
Sure.
in my
Yeah.
role on the Central Square Advisory Committee, I
Mhm.
brought it up as an agenda item in our most recent
Right.
meeting. And we'll continue to have a discussion
Right.
about not just that, but basically
Right.
about street furniture in general.
Yeah.
And is it what we really want?
Right.
Times change. Maybe it is hostile. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's
And
good. Maybe it's not so good. Maybe it's
right.
ugly. Maybe it's not so
Right.
ugly. But I think it's a good thing to have a review every
Sure.
decade or two about
Right.
whether this is the environment you want.
Right.
And so I'm just going to be optimistic and look at this order in that spirit. And I'll just subtract out the word hostile and just say,
Okay.
let's just look at the architecture of our street furniture and see whether it's what we want, and
Right.
I think that's completely valid.
Right. I mean, the subway ones, if you're going to use the word hostile, those look really, I don't like those black bars. Those
Yeah.
look bad. But
But
the
I,
others, I think, are more subtle.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
would say that, armless benches in the subways,
Mhm.
as I've gotten a bit older, I kind of like to have something to
Yeah.
push
Well,
me
we
up
talked
onto.
about this last time. They are trying to
Yeah.
be ADA compliant. I mean, they're
Yeah. So
stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's like,
yeah, so
you know,
so I think it's debatable what is and isn't
sure.
hostile, but it's a valid discussion to be having.
Right.
Now, the other item that I was going to mention, there are plenty of other things we could look at, but was that there is a city council order calling for essentially the decriminalization of basically hallucinogenic
Oh, is that what those are? Okay.
material like magic mushrooms and
All
things
right.
like that. Now, I happen to know that the city of Somerville already passed something of this nature.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's to whatever. It's not like banning of controlled substances is not the province of local city councilors.
Uh-huh.
That is really the province of state law, I believe. So, I will have to view all of these things simply as yet another version, either whether it's via home rule petition or otherwise, a way of somehow beseeching the state legislature to decriminalize. What's the next level of decriminalization? We first decriminalized marijuana,
Okay.
and now we've sort of normalized it. It's even, you can buy it
Oh,
recreationally. It will then you will be able to like go down to the corner store to pick up some LSD.
who can
Can I
afford to
have some
buy this
blotter
stuff
acid?
anymore?
Can
Yeah,
I
right.
like a quart of milk,
Oh, stop.
stick of gum and some
I,
blotter acid, please?
yeah, I don't get where this is coming from, but like, well, you
You
said
know,
Somerville.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's basically, I've been getting the impression for a while that
Yeah.
some of our city councilors, I shall not
Uh-huh.
name names,
Yeah.
almost have like they have ghostwriters who are basically writing the
Yeah.
orders for them,
Yeah.
based on, some kind of
Called activist
an
aids.
activist agenda. Yes. Yeah.
Activist aids.
The
Whatever.
activist
Yeah.
aides, I think, are playing a
Yeah.
role in some of that, to be
Absolutely. Yeah.
sure. So I don't really know where it's coming from, but I have to tell you, it's a source of great comedy for me. I mean, and that's worth it always, right?
That's true.
It's
Okay.
like now I can fully come to, if they pass this, now I can really come to understand where our city councils are coming from now more.
Okay.
You know,
Right. Why
that they're
not? Yeah.
fully embracing
Yeah.
hallucinogens. Yeah, it explains a lot, I think.
Oh gosh. All right. We have about a half a minute left, and that meeting, by the way, of the neighborhood is February 17th at 2 p.m. It's in the afternoon, which some people thought
Yeah,
was not good.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure that except for like President's Day that we're on a pretty regular schedule for council meetings and such going
Right,
forward for
but
a
yeah, the
while.
next time we meet, there won't be a council meeting. So
That's right. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So
enough to
anyway, on
talk.
that note, I guess we're out of time. So see you again
See
soon.
you
Cambridge
soon.
Inside Out.
Bye.